The garage was quiet that afternoon. The air was heavy with the smell of oil, burnt rubber, and steel. Rays of sunlight slipped through the metal roof panels, making patterns on the grease-stained floor. Tire racks lined the back wall. Old wrenches and worn-out gloves were scattered across the workbench. And in the corner, under a flickering ceiling light, a man in overalls was working silently. His name was Dryas. Dryas Jackson was a black man in his early 40s. He had deep lines around his eyes and calloused hands that spoke of years spent lifting engines and tightening bolts. He didn't talk much. Customers usually passed by him without a second glance. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to be noticed. He just did his job well, better than anyone else in that shop. That day, something strange happened. A motorcycle rolled in, a sleek black beauty, polished to perfection. The man riding it wore a simple black cap, jeans, and a faded jacket. He looked tired, but there was something about his face that felt familiar. The other workers didn't recognize him, but Dryas paused mid-turn of his wrench. He blinked twice. It was Keanu Reeves. Keanu parked the bike and walked up to the front desk. "Hey, something's off with the rear brake. Feels like it's dragging. Can someone take a look?" The manager, Tom, didn't even lift his eyes from his phone. "We're full. Come back tomorrow." Keanu gave a polite nod. "No problem. Just thought I'd check." Dryas, wiping his hands with a rag, stepped forward quietly. "I can take a look now if you don't mind waiting a few minutes." Keanu turned to him and smiled. "Really? That'd be great." The garage went quiet. Some of the younger workers snickered from the back. "You don't even know who that is," one whispered. But Dryas ignored them. He pushed the bike toward his station with calm, steady hands. Keanu followed, impressed by his focus. As Dryas leaned down to check the brake caliper, he said softly, "My son showed me your movie the other night. John Wick. That was something else." Keanu laughed under his breath. "Thanks. He must have good taste." They both smiled, and just like that, a bridge formed between two men from different worlds. 10 minutes passed. Dryas worked without saying much. His fingers were fast but gentle. Keanu watched him carefully, not just what he did, but how he did it. Finally, Dryas stood up, wiped sweat from his brow, and said, "It was the pad. Misaligned a little. Adjusted it. Try it now. Should feel smooth." Keanu swung his leg over the bike and took a slow lap around the block. When he returned, he looked amazed. "Man, it's perfect," he said. "You have magic hands." "Nah," Dryas replied, lowering his gaze. "Just years of practice." Just then, Tom walked over, finally noticing who the customer was. He stiffened, his eyes grew wide. "Wait, are you Keanu Reeves?" Keanu nodded, still smiling. "Yeah, just stopped by. Your guy here's amazing." Tom's smile twisted into something fake and nervous. "Oh, well, we'd have rolled out the red carpet if we'd known. Hope the service was okay." "More than okay," Keanu replied. "Dryas here saved me a long drive to the dealership." But instead of praising Dryas, Tom's expression changed. He turned to Dryas with a frown. "You weren't assigned this job." He was about to leave. Dryas said simply, "I had time. We have a system," Tom snapped. "You don't just pick up customers on your own." Keanu's smile faded. The air turned cold. Tom continued, "We've had problems with freelancing here. Dryas, we'll talk in the office." Now, Dryas didn't say a word. He just nodded. But there was something heavy in his eyes, a silent pain that came from years of being overlooked, scolded, and never praised. Even when he did something right. Keanu watched him walk away. He didn't say anything, not yet. But something inside him stirred. Inside the office, Tom closed the door and leaned forward across the small desk. "You're making me look bad," he said. "I fixed his bike." He was happy. "You broke protocol. You're not even a certified mechanic." "I passed every test. I've worked here 12 years. But you're not on the books. You know that. You work hourly. Temporary status." Dryas clenched his jaw. "You've kept me temporary for 12 years. And I could have fired you 10 years ago." Tom shot back. "I kept you out of charity." Dryas didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. This wasn't the first time. Just another moment where doing the right thing got him punished. Tom picked up a paper from his drawer. "You're done here. Effective today." Darius took the paper. His hands didn't shake. He just stood, nodded once, and walked out. But outside, Keanu was still waiting. Keanu stood beside the bike, leaning slightly on one leg, as if deep in thought, when Darius stepped into the light, holding the paper in his hand. Their eyes met. "He fired you, didn't he?" Keanu asked quietly. Darius gave a half smile, more sad than bitter. "Yeah, for fixing my bike, for not staying in my place." Keanu stared at him, a thousand things running through his head. Then he stepped forward. "Do you mind if I ask you something?" Keanu said. "Sure. Would you work for me?" Darius blinked. "I don't follow." Keanu pulled a card from his pocket. "I own a bike company. Small team. Mostly custom builds and restorations. We work out of LA, but we've been expanding. I've been looking for someone like you." Darius stared at the card. It didn't look fancy. Just a simple white card with a logo and a number. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you're good," Keanu said, "and because no one saw it, but you still did the right thing." Darius took the card. His voice cracked slightly. This can't be real." "It is," Keanu said gently. "But it's your choice." That night, Darius sat on the edge of his bed. His wife, Lena, stood by the door, holding their daughter in her arms. "Are you going to call him?" she asked. He looked down at the card again. He remembered every insult, every quiet dismissal. Every year they told him he wasn't enough. But then he remembered the way Keanu had watched him work, with respect, with trust. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I am." And somewhere across town, Keanu Reeves smiled as his phone lit up with a message that simply read, "This is Darius. Thank you. I'm ready." Darius couldn't sleep that night, not because he was worried, but because he was overwhelmed. For the first time in years, someone had seen his worth. Not just anyone, but Keanu Reeves himself. The next morning, Darius woke up early, even before the sun. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror, quietly trimming his beard. He combed his hair, changed into clean clothes, not the usual garage overalls. Lena made him a cup of coffee and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "I'm proud of you." Their daughter, Maya, peeked around the kitchen corner holding her tiny toy wrench. "Fix something today, Daddy." He smiled and kissed her forehead. "I'll try." Keanu's bike company was located on the edge of the city, tucked behind an old warehouse. It wasn't flashy or loud, but it had heart. The building was simple. But when Darius pulled up in a borrowed car and stepped inside, he was stunned. Custom bikes lined the walls. Parts gleamed in the morning light. Workers laughed while tuning engines. It felt like a family, not just a business. "You made it," a voice said from behind. Darius turned. It was Keanu, already dressed in a black apron, holding a helmet under his arm. He smiled like an old friend. "Welcome to Arch Motorcycles," Keanu said. Darius swallowed. "I didn't expect it to feel like this." "Yeah, we're not like most shops," Keanu replied. "We build together, we eat together, and we don't fire people for helping." Keanu led Darius through the shop, introducing him to each team member. There was Loop, a fierce welder with tattoos of roses up her arm. Ben, a quiet engineer who once designed airplane engines. And Sammy, a young apprentice who looked up to everyone with wide eyes. Each one welcomed Darius with smiles, not fake ones, but the kind you give when you're truly happy to meet someone. Keanu pointed to a back room. "This one's yours if you stay. You'll have your own tools. We also pay full benefits. By the way, no temporary status here." Darius was speechless. His hands touched the smooth metal table. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then, with a soft laugh, he whispered, This is what it feels like to be trusted." Keanu nodded. "You've earned it." As the day went on, Darius got to work. He didn't need instructions. He flowed into the job like a fish in water. He tuned, adjusted, welded, and tested. Loop even paused her own work just to watch him. "He's good," she told Ben. "Real good." Ben agreed. We needed someone like him. Meanwhile, in the front office, Keanu received a phone call. The name flashing on the screen made his brow furrow. Tom. Keanu answered calmly. This is Keanu. Hey, listen. Tom's voice was shaky. About that mechanic, Dryas. There's been a misunderstanding. You fired him. Keanu said flatly. Well, yes, but I didn't realize he was helping you. If I'd known, that's the problem, Tom. Keanu cut in. You only care when someone's famous. Silence. He's one of the most skilled mechanics I've met. Keanu continued. And you wasted 12 years of his time. Look, is there any way you can send him back, just for a few days? A journalist came in and asked about the whole thing. Keanu hung up. He walked back into the shop and saw Darius teaching Sammy how to adjust a chain without over-tightening it. Keanu didn't interrupt. He just smiled and kept watching. This was exactly where Darius belonged. That night, the team had dinner together in the shop. A long wooden table was set up near the garage doors. They passed around bowls of rice, grilled chicken, and salad. Stories flew across the table about wild bikes, late-night failures, and unexpected wins. Darius sat quietly at first, unsure if he should laugh or speak. But then Luke cracked a joke about Ben almost lighting his eyebrows on fire, and Darius laughed so hard his shoulders shook. That's what we like to hear, Luke grinned. Keanu raised his glass, just water, but still a toast, to Darius. He said, you didn't just fix a break. You reminded me what integrity looks like. Everyone raised their cups. Darius looked down, holding back tears. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing me when no one else did. A few days later, something unexpected happened. A reporter from a local newspaper showed up at the garage. Her name was Rena. She wore glasses, carried a notepad, and had a voice that never rushed. I'm working on a story, she told Keanu. We heard what happened at the auto shop. I didn't plan for this to go public, Keanu said. But people need to hear it, Rena replied. Especially stories about kindness, justice, and second chances. Rena sat down with Darius. In the break room, her recorder beeped softly. How did it feel when he offered you a place here? She asked. Darius looked out the window for a moment. Like someone opened a door that had been locked my whole life. And the way you were treated before. He shrugged. It's not just me. It happens to a lot of guys like me. We get told to keep our heads down, stay quiet, don't make trouble. But sometimes, doing the right thing is seen as trouble. Rena nodded, writing down every word. You planning to stay here long term? Darius smiled. I'm not going anywhere. The article came out 2 days later. The headline read, Actor Keanu Reeves hires mechanic fired for kindness. Gives him a new life. It went viral. Comments flooded in. Thousands of messages praising Darius, job offers, radio interviews, even a segment on morning TV shows. But Darius didn't chase fame. He stayed right where he was, at the workbench, hands stained with oil, teaching Sammy, laughing with Luke, and building bikes that made people smile. And back in that old garage, where it all began, Tom sat at his desk, watching the news play on his computer. No calls came in that day. No customers walked through the door. And on his desk was a note that read, Respect is not earned through power. It's earned by how you treat people when no one is watching. He didn't know who left it, but he had a feeling. As weeks passed, Darius became more than just a mechanic at Arch. He became a leader, a mentor, a symbol. People from all walks of life came to the shop, not just for bikes, but for hope. One customer, an elderly man in a wheelchair, rolled in and said, I came here because I read your story. I just wanted to shake your hand. Darius bent down and shook it gently. Thank you, sir. Keanu watched from a distance. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to change the course of a life. Sometimes, it changes to the morning. Sun was warm on Darius's face as he unlocked the side gate to the garage. He had arrived early, not out of obligation, but out of love for the work. This place felt like home now. The sound of tools clinking, soft jazz in the background, even the smell of fuel and fresh rubber. It all made sense here. Sammy was already inside, struggling with a worn-out clutch system on an old custom bike. He looked up as Darius entered and smiled wide. Hey, Mr. Darius, he said, voice full of energy. I tried the alignment trick you showed me yesterday, I think. It worked. Dryas leaned down, checked the angle, and nodded with pride. You got it. Nice job, kid. Just then, Keanu walked in through the back with a box of donuts and a steaming cups of coffee in a tray. He tossed Dryas one. You running a school? In here already, he joked. Dryas took the cup. If they keep listening, maybe. He's picking up fast. Keanu sat on the corner of the worktable and glanced around. You've changed the vibe here, you know. How so? It's calmer, Keanu said. More focus, more laughter. Even the bikes are coming together faster. I think people feel safer because of you. Dryas looked down, touched by the words. For years, he had felt like a ghost, invisible. Now he was being seen, and not just for what he could fix, but for who he was. Later that day, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the garage. A man in a tailored suit stepped out. Tall, pale, with perfect hair and an expensive watch, he introduced himself at the front desk. Name's Roger Clayton. I represent Vanguard Motors. We're looking to expand our custom division and are interested in potential collaborations. Keanu came out to meet him, friendly but cautious. Thanks for dropping by. What's the offer? Roger smiled, sharp and confident. We've been impressed by your latest projects, and frankly, we think your lead mechanic has something special. We'd like to offer him a position. You mean Dryas? Keanu asked. Yes. We believe his story has gone viral for a reason, and we'd love to make him the face of a new campaign. High salary, interviews, features. Keanu's jaw tightened. He's not a product, he's a human being. We know, Roger said quickly, but this is a huge opportunity. He deserves the spotlight. Keanu stepped back. He already has what he deserves, respect. Roger left his card anyway. Just in case, he said. When Dryas heard about it, he didn't react how Keanu expected. He wants to use your story for business, Keanu warned, but Dryas only nodded. I'm used to people trying to take shortcuts. Let them talk. I'll stay where the work is real. That evening, as Dryas was locking up, a small car pulled into the alley. It was old and dusty. A young woman stepped out, holding a notebook and a nervous smile. Her clothes were simple, and her shoes had seen better days. Are you Dryas? She asked softly. That's me, he said, confused. My name's Jada. I'm a student at community college. I read about you and, well, I've always wanted to be a mechanic, but every shop I went to turned me down, said I wasn't strong enough. Dryas looked at her hands. They were small but steady. Her eyes held the same hunger he once had, the desire to be useful. You ever worked on an engine before? He asked. Just in textbooks. You free tomorrow? Her face lit up. Yes, then be here at 8. Don't be late. She nodded, beaming. The next morning, the team gathered like always. But now there was one more. Jada stood shyly by the door, dressed in oversized coveralls, holding a notebook. Dryas clapped his hands. Listen up. This is Jada. She's here to learn. Treat her like family. Luke gave her a big thumbs up. Ben passed her a toolbox. Sammy whispered, You're gonna love it here. Within hours, she was under the hood with Dryas, eyes wide, scribbling notes, asking questions, making mistakes, and trying again. Keanu stood in the corner, arms crossed, just watching. He leaned toward Ben. That's the third person he's taken under his wing in 2 weeks. He's building more than bikes, Ben said. He's building people. Meanwhile, in a glossy office downtown, Tom was panicking. His garage was empty. Customers had stopped coming. Word had spread. Reviews online labeled his shop as toxic, unfair, and disrespectful. His phone hardly rang anymore. He sat slumped behind his desk when a knock came at the door. He looked up and saw Roger Clayton from Vanguard Motors. You Tom? Roger asked. Yeah, he said weakly. Roger sat without invitation. I heard you used to employ a guy named Dryas. Tom's face tightened. He worked here, but he crossed the line. Did he? Roger asked, raising an eyebrow. Or did you? Tom scoffed. What do you want? A warning, Roger said. You might want to shut this place down before the lawsuits start. Tom's face went pale. People are listening now, Roger added. they weren't before. He stood and walked out, leaving Tom staring at the walls, now more silent than ever. Back at Arch Motorcycles, something beautiful was taking shape. The team was working on their first ever community-built motorcycle, an idea Darius came up with. What if we let people sign up to help? He told Keanu one night. We guide them, teach them, let them build something real. Keanu had loved it. We'll auction it later and donate to a school, Darius said. A place where kids like Jada can learn without begging. Within days, the shop had a sign on the door. Free weekend workshops. Learn from real mechanics. Families came. Students came. Even some older folks who had retired long ago showed up just to feel the tools again. Darius stood at the center of it all, patient and humble, showing a 10-year-old boy how to hold a wrench, guiding a grandmother through cleaning a carburetor. Keanu whispered to Loop, "This is bigger than any movie I've made." And she nodded, because it's real. One day, during the workshop, a man approached Darius and pulled him aside. He wore an old veteran's jacket and carried a cane. "You don't know me," the man said, "but 20 years ago, I trained your father." Darius froze. "My father?" he asked, voice shaking. "Your dad was the best mechanic in the Army motor pool. Always told me, my boy's gonna be better than me one day." He was right. Darius's eyes welled up. "He passed when I was 12. He'd be proud of you," the man said. "More than you know." Darius didn't speak. He just hugged the old man tightly. Keanu watched from a distance, eyes shining. He realized this story wasn't just about one man getting a second chance. It was about generations being healed, about cycles being broken, and about how one small act, a mechanic stepping forward to help a stranger, could spark a chain reaction of change that reached far beyond the garage walls. The garage buzzed with life. Laughter echoed between walls. Engines purred under the touch of learning hands, and hope moved like a warm wind through each corner of the shop. Keanu Reeves, though famous to the world, never acted like a star here. He worked side by side with Darius, Jada, and Sammy, wearing the same apron, lifting the same weight. He swept floors, poured coffee, and checked bolts like every other worker. To Darius, that was the most powerful thing about him, his humility. On a Thursday afternoon, as the workshop wrapped up, Jada stayed behind. She was working on her first solo rebuild, an old 1975 Honda that came in rusted and broken. She wiped sweat from her brow and looked up at Darius. "Do you think I'll ever be as good as you?" she asked. Darius sat beside her. "You're already better than I was at your age. You ask questions, you're not afraid to fail, and you care. That's what makes someone great." Her eyes filled with tears. "No one's ever said that to me." "Then they weren't looking hard enough," Darius said gently. Meanwhile, outside, a black SUV had pulled up. Two men in formal clothes stepped out. They looked around, hesitant, before one knocked on the door. Ben opened it. "You guys here for the community workshop?" The taller one shook his head. "We're from City Council." "Is Darius Jackson here?" Everyone inside paused. Darius walked forward, wiping grease from his hands. "That's me," he said. "We've been following what you're doing here," the man said. "The workshops, the stories, the outreach. You've built more than just bikes. You've built community. We'd like to honor you." Darius blinked. "Honor me? The mayor wants to present you with the Local Builders Award. Also, we'd like to fund a small training center under your name for students who can't afford trade school." Silence fell over the garage. Keanu stepped beside Darius, smiling. "You earned this, man." But Darius shook his head slowly. "I don't want a name on a plaque. I just want more kids like Jada to have a chance. And that's exactly why you deserve it," the man said. The news spread fast. Articles, interviews, videos, the story of a black mechanic who got fired for doing the right thing and then changed lives was now being told across the country. One morning, as Darius stepped outside to get some air, a woman approached him. On the sidewalk, she was older, dressed in simple clothes, with tears in her eyes. "My son dropped out of school," she said, "but then he saw your video. Now he wants to fix bikes. He says you made him believe again." Darius held her hand. "Gently, tell him to stop by. We'll find a way to teach him." That week, 5 more teens showed up. By Friday, there was a waiting list. But not everything was smooth. On Saturday, a news camera showed up without warning. A reporter rushed into the garage during the workshop, followed by a loud crew with microphones and flashing lights. Darius Jackson, just a few questions, she called. He stepped forward, confused. This is a learning space. You can't just barge in. But the reporter shoved a mic in his face. How does it feel to be famous after being fired just for helping? Do you think you're being used by Keanu Reeves for publicity? Darius stepped back. Keanu came from behind and stood beside him. His voice was calm, but firm. You need to leave, Mr. Reeves, she said, camera now on him. Is it true you're planning to sell the garage to investors? Keanu's jaw tightened. No, he said. This place isn't for sale, and Darius isn't a headline. He's a hero. Now please leave. Respectfully, security guided them out. After they were gone, Darius leaned on a workbench, heart racing. You okay? Keanu asked. I didn't expect this, Darius said. I didn't want to be on TV. I just wanted to help. Keanu nodded. Fame finds those who stay true to themselves. That night, the garage held a quiet gathering. No cameras, no speeches, just family, music, and food. Jada brought her grandmother. Sammy brought his little brother. Luke cooked tamales. Ben brought a guitar. They all sat around in a circle, laughing, telling stories. Keanu even read a poem he wrote about machines and memories. And then Darius stood up. He held a small, worn photo in his hand, a picture of his father in uniform, standing beside a truck with tools in his hand. My dad never made it to see me become who I am, Darius said. But tonight, I feel like he's here. Everyone listened quietly. This shop, this team, it gave me back my dignity. And because of that, I promised to give it to others. There was no applause, just silence. And in that silence, something holy passed through the air. Something that didn't need noise to be felt. The next day, a letter arrived, handwritten, from Tom. Keanu found it first. He read it aloud in the break room. To Darius, you were right. I was wrong. I let power blind me. I've closed my shop. I'm going to work with a local charity now, fixing bikes for kids. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope your story reminds people like me that it's never too late to change. Sincerely, Tom. Darius sat quietly. You okay? Ben asked. I think so, Darius said. I think he meant it. Keanu nodded. Change always starts with one honest step. 1 week later, the city held the awards ceremony. But Darius didn't go alone. He brought Jada, Sammy, Luke, Ben, and even the young students from the workshop. The mayor stood on stage, holding a golden wrench-shaped trophy. The crowd clapped. But Darius stood humbly, hands at his sides. He stepped to the mic. I was never trying to be noticed. He said, I was just doing what I believed was right. He looked at the sea of faces. All shapes, all colors, all ages. They fired me because I helped someone. But if that never happened, I wouldn't be here. So maybe sometimes, the door that closes is not the end. It's a push toward where you were meant to be. And when he stepped down, everyone stood. Even Keanu wiped his eyes after the ceremony. As they walked out into the fresh air, Jada looked up at Darius. You really changed everything. Nah, he said with a smile. We changed it together. And behind them, the night sky glowed with promise. A promise that no act of kindness, no matter how small, ever goes unnoticed. The day after the awards ceremony, things were quiet at the garage, not silent, just calm, peaceful. Birds chirped in the trees outside the wide-open bay doors. Soft jazz played from Ben's speaker. The kind of day that didn't shout, but whispered gently. Something special had taken root. Darius arrived early, as always. He walked the shop floor like he always did now, not with a heavy heart like before, but with quiet pride. He checked on the new engines, gave Sammy a fist bump, smiled as Jada tested her rebuilt Honda's ignition for the first time. Click room. The engine roared to life. Everyone turned and cheered. She lives, Jada shouted, laughing with both hands in the air. Darius put a hand on her shoulder. You did that. You showed me how, she replied. But before they could settle into the day, Keanu entered the garage with a strange expression on his face. He held a letter in his hand. Real paper, sealed in gold, not an email or text. He walked straight to Dryas and handed it over. "This came for you," he said. Dryas frowned. "From who? Open it," Keanu said with a curious smile. Dryas slowly peeled the seal open. Inside was a short but shocking invitation. He read it aloud. "You are invited to speak at the Global Innovation Conference in San Francisco as a keynote guest. Your story has inspired engineers, educators, and community builders worldwide. We will cover all travel and accommodation. We hope you accept." The entire shop went silent. "A conference," Dryas whispered. "Me?" Keanu smiled. "I guess they heard your story louder than you thought." 2 weeks later, Dryas stood backstage at a massive theater. The curtains were thick and red. The lights were blinding, and in front of them, hundreds of people, executives, engineers, students, teachers, people from around the world. He wore a clean black suit Lena had picked out for him. Maya, their daughter, had drawn a small heart on the inside of his collar for luck. Backstage, Keanu gave him a nod. "You got this." Dryas took a breath and walked out. The spotlight hit him hard, but he didn't freeze. Instead, he started with something simple. "My name is Dryas Jackson," he said. "I fix bikes. I teach kids, and once I got fired for doing the right thing." A quiet gasp moved through the crowd. "But that firing turned into something better than any job I ever had. It became a beginning." He went on to tell the story, not about fame, not about awards, but about respect, kindness, second chances, and how one man, Keanu, didn't just give him a job. He gave him dignity. When he finished, the crowd stood, not because he was famous, but because he was real. After the talk, Dryas was approached by people from all walks of life. A young engineer from India said, "We want to start workshops like yours back home." A woman from Brazil said, "Can you help us set up a program for single mothers?" An older teacher from Chicago said, "Your words made me want to go back to my classroom." Dryas was stunned. He looked at Keanu, who was standing nearby, smiling. "You planted a seed," Keanu said, "and now it's growing everywhere." When they got back to the garage, things had changed. Reporters weren't just showing up now. Government leaders were. Foundations were calling. They wanted to sponsor more training centers like the one Dryas dreamed about. But Dryas didn't let it get to his head. He still arrived first, still taught Jada, still cleaned up after hours. And one night, as he packed up tools with Ben, he asked something unexpected. "What if we start something bigger?" Ben wiped his hands. "Bigger than what?" "A movement," Dryas said. "Not just bikes, but dignity, trade schools, support systems, people helping each other rebuild their lives, like I got the chance to." Ben grinned. "You've got my hands, brother." They clapped hands over the toolbox. A few days later, a storm hit the city. Thunder rolled and rain came down heavy. The garage stayed closed that day. But Dryas and Keanu came in to check for leaks. As they worked under the roof tightening bolts, something unexpected happened. A woman showed up at the door. She was soaked in rain, holding the hand of a teenage boy with a torn hoodie and tired eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, shivering. "We didn't know where else to go." Keanu stepped forward. "You okay?" She nodded. "My son. He got kicked out of school. They said he was too angry, but he's not bad. He needs something to hold onto." The boy looked at the ground, ashamed. Dryas crouched down in front of him and placed a wrench in his hand. "You know what this is?" he asked. The boy shrugged. "It's power," Dryas said. "Not to hurt, but to build. Come inside." The boy hesitated, then followed him in. They worked in silence while rain poured outside. And in that garage, the storm didn't feel so loud anymore. Soon, the city approved land for a second center, a free vocational school that Dryas would help design. People donated parts, money, time. Even the same newspaper that first interviewed Dryas ran a headline, "From Fired to Founder: How One Man Built a Bridge of Second Chances." On the wall of the new center, they hung a mural. It showed Dryas standing in front of a bike, surrounded by kids of all backgrounds, holding tools and smiling. Underneath, it said, "This is where broken things become whole again." But the biggest moment came when Darius was invited to a private event, one held at the White House. He didn't know what to expect. But when he arrived, the president handed him a medal. "You didn't just fix bikes," the president said. "You fixed hearts, and you reminded us all that greatness comes from the quiet corners of the world." Darius stood frozen. When he returned to his garage days later, he wore the medal only for 5 minutes. Then he took it off and placed it on the wall, beside a photo of his father. Not to show off, but to remind everyone who walked through the door that you don't need a title to change the world. You just need heart. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Darius stood alone in the garage. The floor was clean. The tools were lined perfectly on the rack. The air smelled like fresh rubber and purpose. Outside, the city was waking up slowly. But inside the garage, something sacred lingered. The sound of all the lives that had passed through. He looked around and saw more than walls and machines. He saw moments where kids found their confidence, moments where strangers became family, and moments where one man's courage lit a flame others had been searching for their whole lives. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Jada. "Mr. Darius, I got accepted into the trade school you helped build. Full scholarship." I cried. "I hope you're proud." He smiled, his eyes misting. He typed back one line, "I always was." Later that day, a bus pulled up in front of the shop. Not one for tourists. This one was different. Kids stepped out from foster care, shelters, and programs across the city. Some had never even touched a tool before. Some didn't know what it felt like to be needed. But Darius greeted each of them at the gate with a smile. "You don't need to know anything to begin," he told them. "You just need to want to learn." Each was paired with a mentor: Jada, Sammy, Loop, even Ben, who now ran parts of the city's new trade initiative. Keanu came to, walking among them, laughing, lifting boxes, showing one little girl how to hold a socket wrench correctly. "Like this," he said, gentle but firm, "just like life." The girl giggled and tightened the bolt. Word of the program spread beyond the country. Teams from Africa, Europe, Asia began visiting, not to film, but to learn, to copy the model, to bring dignity through craft back to forgotten places. Darius was invited to speak in Kenya, then in Canada, then in Japan. But he always returned home. He always came back to this garage, because this was where he first realized that his worth didn't come from approval. It came from action. On the 5th anniversary of the day Keanu rolled in with his broken bike, they held a celebration. Hundreds came. Former students, teachers, city leaders, mechanics from around the world. They unveiled a sculpture made from melted scrap, shaped like 2 hands holding a wrench. Beneath it, a quote from Darius: "You don't fix machines, you fix stories." When Darius took the stage, he didn't read a speech, he just spoke from the heart. "I used to think my hands were only good for tightening bolts," he said, "but now I know they were made to lift others." He looked at Keanu, who nodded back with a smile that said, "You've done more than enough." The truth is, Darius continued, "I was fired for helping someone, and that turned out to be the greatest gift I was ever given, because through that pain, I found purpose." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Maya, now older, stood beside her mother, holding Darius's hand, and for a moment, time slowed down, as if the universe paused to honor a man who didn't chase fame, but became unforgettable anyway. One final surprise came later that evening. A young man in a sharp blazer walked up to Darius near the refreshment table. He looked nervous. "Sir," he said, "my name's Caleb. I was one of the kids from the first workshop you ever held. You probably don't remember me." Darius nodded slowly. "I remember your face. Well, I now run my own garage. It's small, but I teach others like you taught me. I just wanted to say, thank you." He handed Darius a small plaque. On it were just 3 words: "Because of you." Darius held it in his hands. And for the first time that night, he let himself cry. Not because he was sad, but because everything had come full circle. As the sun set behind the skyline, Darius, Keanu, and the rest of the team stood outside the garage. They didn't say much. Just watch the sky turn gold dot, and in that silence, one truth rang clear: one act of kindness can ripple across generations. One man's fall can become 1,000 people's rise, and one broken bike can be the beginning of a better world.